turning on the Wi-Fi like Obama to a white guys. Temper in the center of when the bill with some white lies. But that's politics, gets colder than the wildest.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Six with Ian and Thomas.
Hi, everybody.
Today we have some news. We got the first half of the round of 16 for Champions League ending, and then talk about some big news in the Premier League. A little bit of news around the world, and then towards the end we'll have some feel-good news in the soccer world going on. I think to start with, we should talk about the Champions League matches.
Okay.
Obviously, there were two big matches that happened this week. The biggest of the two being the Real Madrid PSG game. And obviously, you got two giants coming together. And it almost was disappointing to see PSG lose. Obviously, they lost the first leg, but they couldn't bring it back the second leg against Real Madrid.
No.
And a lot of critics are saying that losing Neymar was a big hit to their season. I was wondering what your take on that was.
I would think that having a guy like Neymar not in the lineup, is going to make a big difference, especially when you not necessarily built the team around him, but I mean with a lot of anticipation, him going from Barcelona to PSG. And spending the money they did to bring him there, and making him, the kind of marquee player that he's known to be, and then him not be able to be in that starting lineup. Sure, that's a big difference. A different part of that same conversation is it may come down to the fact that they need to maybe start getting used to being without Neymar. Apparently there's some discussion between Neymar and Neymar Sr. About a move for him to Real Madrid. Apparently he's looking to make that move before the World Cup, which is 16 weeks, I think.
It's just getting to like 90 days now.
Okay, so it's 12 weeks or
very
something like
close.
But I mean that's a huge move, considering the amount of money that PSG paid to bring him from Barcelona, and he seemed pretty excited to move to PSG, and has done well with the French team, and then to move to the big Barcelona rival in Real Madrid is kind of a surprise move for me. In my mind.
I mean, obviously, in the past there have been, big name moves between the two teams, but it hasn't happened recently that I know of. But another thing is, he wants to move before the World Cup, but the injury he has, could rule him out to just a few weeks before the World Cup. He might come back and be match fit just a few weeks before the World Cup. And that could be, a huge hit on his transfer chances. There's no team wants, a player that is injured and could, not play for the first couple weeks after they've been transferred.
Right.
And also, where is he going to fit at Real Madrid? He isn't, there isn't much space there for a player to, pick up a starting spot. Obviously, if Neymar wants to move, he wants to be a starting player there.
Correct.
And I don't blame him for that. But the only spot that I can really think of there is Karim Benzema either retiring or moving on from Real Madrid. He's aging, and he hasn't been performing at the level that he used to. Maybe picking up a Neymar type player could be the boost that Real Madrid needs, because they struggled at the beginning of the season. They've picked it up recently and have, obviously they're on to the quarterfinals for Champions League, which is a big thing. But it's a year in year out thing for this team. They're always there.
Right.
And I'm wondering how Neymar would fit in that side.
And that's a good question. I mean, and you've already asked that question. Is there a place for him there? I'd hate to see him go somewhere and struggle because they can't find the right fit for him. I don't know. I'm not the biggest Neymar fan. he's apparently not even a favorite of his teammates right now. Apparently, his contract have a lot of player perks written into them, and there's some animosity building among other players in the dressing room with this guy. But at the same time, with the level of skill and talent that Neymar has, I'd hate to see it wasted somewhere. I'd hate to see him, not play 100%. When he's fit. I mean, obviously, an injury is an injury. And they happen. That's just part of athletics and part of the sporting world. Your star players, need breaks to rest and relax and refresh themselves, and sometimes they get injured. And again, you got to heal and get them back to 100% before you put them under the stress of a professional football season. But I hate to see someone like Neymar not use his talents and abilities, at 100%. So, where does he fit? So, and where's he going to be happy?
I agree with
where's he going to be happy?
I agree with you there. But another thing is, Neymar was almost brought in to be sort of a mentor for Kylian Mbappe, who is performing well this season. And it
Right.
seems like you said maybe there's a thing in the locker room. I think Neymar is clicking really well with Kylian Mbappe. Who's gonna pick up the slack if he leaves? Who's gonna become the new mentor for Mbappe? Who's a young up and rising wonder kid, at 19 years old? And I mean, there's rumors that this summer, because he's still technically on loan from Monaco. There's rumors that PSG could make him the second most expensive player in the world, behind Neymar. And Neymar's at 212 million, I believe it was.
I think so.
I think the Mbappe transfer has been speculated to be about 170-ish, 180-ish. What you mean for a 19-year-old kid is ridiculously high.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think if there's any kid that age that deserves it, I think it's him. And you've got to be able to continue to play at the level you're playing when you're young. You can't just be a super wonder kid and then fall off and be nobody when you hit your 20s.
Yeah, and a lot of those folks, I've seen a lot of players say that they spend a bunch of money on nowhere near the 190, $200 million dollar range. Mm-hmm. But still, there's a lot of hype about him. This player is going to be the best. He's, what a fantastic season. We can't wait to see him, break out for real. And then the next season, you don't hear from them at all. And then the season after that, they just completely vanish. And it's saddening to see a lot of, and I don't think that Kylian Mbappe is one of those. The kid has got true talent and a true passion for the sport. And I don't think that's going to be, one of those issues with him. I just hope it doesn't go to his head like it has for some of those players. $200 million going to the club, and then the contractual payouts that these players get. $500,000 a week. I mean, that's $500,000 to practice and then play one match of soccer. Exactly. I'm in. It's good work if you can get it. But and sometimes it just really goes to some of their heads. I mean, you got guys like Leo Messi, and it seems I don't know how much Leo Messi makes. I'm sure it's a boatload, and I think he's earned every penny of it. But it doesn't seem to have been one of those things where he's become this rich superstar douchebag. And that's one of the things I really respect about Lionel Messi is he seems to be still a really down-to-earth kind of guy who just happens to have a really cool job and makes a lot of money doing it. And there's other players, and I don't hear stories and stuff. I just get the vibe I get from guys like Neymar. He's just a jerk. I could be completely wrong. I have no idea. I've never met the guy. Chances are I never will. Unless Inside the Six gets really famous and Neymar's like, hey, you guys said my name a lot. You want to come and hang out? And then we'll go hang out with Neymar for a little bit. Right? It'd be kind of cool. But and it's just you get to see some of these guys, you just think this guy's probably a jerk, and you see, and I think only one time you and I were talking more recently, Christian Pulisic, he's young, and he's making good money, and he's a superstar. He's not yet a household name, but anybody who knows anything about international soccer knows his name. And they know who he is, and they know that he's a midfielder for the U.S. men's national team, and that he plays for Borussia Dortmund. And I see pictures of him on Instagram, stuff like that, and he seems like still just like a kid. He's hanging out with his family on his time off. His sister apparently rides horses, and he's always cheering her on, which is really cool. This kid could probably do whatever he wanted any day of the week. That he's not kicking a soccer ball, but he seems like he's still down to earth, and that tells me that his family is still involved. And that's good. I like seeing that stuff. I like him be able to enjoy what he's doing, and there's people out there that begrudge these folks for making the kind of money they make. It's not up to me, where the money comes from, I have no idea. If I had any kind of idea, I wouldn't be doing a free webcast. But, I like to see the fact that these guys prosper. And I mean, they bring me a lot of joy. I get a lot of entertainment from watching this game.
And I think they enjoy playing the game.
Sure.
Especially, guys like Christian Pulisic and Mbappe from, times I've seen him play, I don't think they're in it for the money. I think they're in it for the joy of the game, which is what you want to see from players like that. You want to see up and rising kids who are still enjoying the game of soccer. And that's what they want to do for a living, is they want to play the beautiful game.
Right.
I can't hate them for that. That's what they want to do. I mean, that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It didn't end up working out, and that's my fault. But it's something a lot of kids want to do. To see them continuing their dream and to be able to play this game like they do is really awesome to see.
Yeah, I agree. And I even at my age, I still play, and I still enjoy it. I want to do it as long as I possibly can. I'll never get paid to play it, and I'm okay with that. Those are just choices that I made along the way. That's how it ended up. But it's still a lot of fun for me, and I enjoy watching these guys who are having fun. Guys like Willian, guys like Aiden Hazard, who are going out there and just having a ball. I mean, they're playing a game, man, and they're getting paid to do it. And I enjoy watching that, and I'm never going to begrudge someone for making a boatload of money doing it.
There was
more power to them.
Porto Liverpool game, which ended up being 0-0. You've got the Tottenham Hotspur game, 2-1 to Juventus, and then you've got Manchester City Basel. Basel actually beating Manchester City, and obviously it didn't really matter for them because City ended up winning 5-2 on aggregate.
Yeah.
But good on Basel. Beating
Sure.
the big powerhouse of the season. You've got Liverpool moving on because although it was a 0-0 game, the 5-0 aggregate from the first game, is unsurmountable. You don't beat that. And then Juventus will be moving on after winning 4-3 on aggregate. So very close, very good win for Juventus to move on.
I think that second leg was a really
Juventus
close scoring match too. I think was it 1-1?
It was the second leg was 2-1.
2-1. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I see it now.
Obviously I'm rooting for Juventus a little bit for the Champions League, simply because I've always been a fan of Gigi Buffon.
Yeah.
It's one of his last seasons. I want to see the guy win a Champions League finally.
Yeah, it'd be a nice star in his crown for him to go out like that.
And then coming up next week, we've got Manchester United, Sevilla, Roma versus Shakhtar, Besiktas versus Bayern, and Barcelona versus Chelsea. Obviously, the big game there is the Barca-Chelsea game. And that's what I'm very excited to watch, just because I'm a fan of both teams. The first match ended up being 1-1, so it's coming down to this final game. Obviously, Chelsea have a slight disadvantage because Barca were able to pick up the away goal.
Yeah.
As long as Chelsea can score one, they'll keep it going. I think with that, I'd like to move on to Premier League. There wasn't much happening with Premier League. The only real thing was, I mean, obviously Chelsea finally getting back to a win. They've had a very tough schedule recently. They picked up a 2-1 win against
Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace. I think the big game of the week was definitely the Manchester United Liverpool.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
I knew you were going to bring that up, and it's for me as a Liverpool supporter, that's a hard one to swallow, and I'll even echo the words of Jurgen Klopp, where it was massively rubbish, and it's a long time rivalry. United has the head-to-head advantage. They've won more often than not, but it's still nice to. For Liverpool to go and especially at Old Trafford, it's kind of fun to take the wind out of the sails of Manchester United fans, on their own grounds. But it kind of cemented United into second place. Actually dropped Liverpool down to fourth. There was a pretty good battle for second place between the two of them. Had Liverpool won, they would have moved solidly into second. But it is what it is, and we keep moving. It was a good match. Liverpool had their chances, and Jose Mourinho's squad did what they needed to do. The fact that Paul Pogba was injured in training and didn't make it to the starting 11 gave Marcus Rashford the start, and he had a really good, solid brace of goals to bring his team out on top. So good for him. And it's nice to see the young stars like that play well. Too bad it went against a team that I like to support and like to root for. But still, a great footballer. He's exciting to watch. Especially as young as he is. He's still on the rise as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. It's kind of sad because he doesn't really get as many chances. He broke out a couple seasons ago as like a star, and then he stayed at Manchester United, and he isn't really shown off very much now because you got a huge name like Paul Pogba, and fans want to see those big names. The board wants to see those big names because they paid big money for them. I don't think it's. I personally think Marcus Rashford is a better choice.
I agree.
Every time he comes on, he's consistently playing good ball, and you want a player who can be consistent. You don't want, and nothing against Paul Pogba, he's not as consistent as Marcus Rashford can be. Paul Pogba is a flashier guy. He can score goals, and when he scores goals, they're fantastic. But he has off games.
Sure.
And I would rather have someone who is always having a decent game than a player who every once in a while will have a fantastic game.
Right.
That's just my personal opinion on that. I think the last big news of Premier League this week was the Burnley-West Ham game.
Yeah,
it ended up getting almost violent.
It came really close to being violent.
There was a huge storm of West Ham fans that rushed the pitch after the second goal. And basically started verbally berating their team, and ended up, they were turning around yelling at the board. I mean, there was a West Ham player who I know basically threw a player off the pitch, and the West Ham manager was told to leave, because he wasn't safe anymore.
Yeah, they were not. They were throwing coins at him, apparently £2 coins and £5 coins. Why coins, I don't know. Maybe it's just because it was readily available and they couldn't find rocks. And I'm sure, £2 coins are probably not a small coin. I'm sure a £5 coin is even bigger. But apparently David Sullivan did get struck in the face with at least one, and that's when the security teams decided, it's time to get you and your party out of here for safety, and they did leave. the entire stand in front of that section, they weren't even watching the match anymore. They were turned around with their backs to the pitch, facing David Sullivan and the board and their guests and other members of the audience there, and screaming obscenities and obscene gestures and whatnot. And it was hard for TV cameras to not catch a lot of this. Guys, single fans, running onto the pitch, and I mean, almost physically accosting Mark Noble, who was visibly upset with the security guys. And then another fan came and he grabbed a corner flag, ran all the way to center pitch, and planted his flag in the middle of the center circle before he was escorted off. Police were lined up in front of the dugouts for protection. When I was watching the match, I was like, this referee's going to abandon this match any minute now. And he didn't. They played the 90 minutes, and Burnley got a 3-0 draw away, to West Ham. And the West Ham fans I think they've had enough. What can they do to fix what's broken? I don't know. David Sullivan did come out and say that maybe he was going to take a step back, and they were going to hire a full-time professional director of football, which could be a step in the right direction. How much experience does David Sullivan and his co-owners and the other board members have, picking and choosing players and coming up with strategies and whatnot, as opposed to a professional director of football. So hopefully, again, that gives David Moyes a little bit more control over what's going on, because apparently the way the setup is now, he doesn't have a lot of control. Even like with transfers and such, he's not in control of those things. David Sullivan has been in control of those, and apparently has finally decided, after getting hit in the face with coins, that maybe he's not the right guy for that job. So, that future is wide open right now. Even as far as, does David Moyes stay? I mean, this guy, he's been in charge of Everton, he's been in charge of United, and now he's really struggling. So we'll see.
One last piece of news for Premier League is Southampton's manager Mauricio Pellegrino is no longer at the club. They basically said, hey, it's not working out. We'd like to part ways. And he came out recently and said, he understands why it happened. And I'm just seeing something that they are expected to appoint Mark Hughes as the club manager. Ex-Stoke City manager. A decent manager. He's one of those managers who's known for, I guess, taking clubs who are struggling and kind of getting them back up to around mid-table. And there's a lot of managers like that in the league. But he's not a terrible manager. He knows how to play ball. He's been doing it. He's been managing for years.
He was a fantastic player in his day.
That'll be very exciting to see, what he can do with the club to maybe bring them back up. They're not currently in the relegation zone, but they are right above it. And it's a very close race right now.
Yeah, they're 1 point above Crystal Palace, who is in 18th place with 27 points. Southampton's got 28. I did see a really nice letter that Mauricio Pellegrino wrote. Just, hey, final farewell. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm sorry it didn't work out. I understand. And best of luck. It was really kind of a class move on his part. It wasn't like it didn't seem like it was a really animus discharge. It seemed like I kind of knew this was coming, and I'm sorry it didn't work out, kind of thing. So good luck to him, in whatever he does, and good luck to Southampton with Mark Hughes.
And then, so moving on to outside of England, in Italy, we talked about it last week. There was a player, David Astori. He was the captain at Fiorentina, played for the Italian international team. He passed away in his sleep, and we did talk about that. And before all of the Italian league matches, there was
the memorial
type, which was class act from all the teams.
Sure.
And I remember I saw a picture of, it was before the, where is it? It was before the Juventus Udinese game. Uh, Gigi Buffon, who obviously played with David Astori on the international team, was in tears. And, obviously you hate seeing that. Obviously they were probably pretty good friends. They were enemies on the pitch sometimes, but they were also teammates. You hate seeing something like that. And I remember reading a quote from one of the trainers at Fiorentina that one of Astori's best friends was basically, he wasn't training right. He wasn't eating like he was supposed to. He wasn't staying in shape. He was basically falling apart. And I completely understand.
Sure.
I mean, he just lost his best friend. It's hard hearing news like that. I do have a little piece of good news following that. Their Fiorentina's first match up after that was against Benevento. And the player who replaced David Astori in the starting lineup, his name was Vitor Hugo. So he's a defender, and he ended up scoring the winning goal in the match. This is his first time coming on, and his celebration was to immediately run up to the sidelines where there was a photo of David Astori, and he basically saluted it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll never forget you. Obviously they're teammates, so they're still very close. But that's another class act from a player like that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
He kind of got his his chance because this guy passed away. Obviously you don't want to forget him. It's you don't want to take that for granted. Very class from him. That's all I have for the news there. If you want to end off with your little piece of good news.
Yeah, I just have a couple little ones. Feel good pieces of news. There was a match recently that Lionel Messi basically chose for personal reasons to not participate. The personal reason was he and his wife welcomed their third child. Apparently mom and baby are doing just fine. Everybody's happy, healthy, and as they should be. So congratulations go to Mr. and Mrs. Messi and their new child, and welcome. And then I actually just found out that David Silva from Manchester City, apparently his wife just had a son very recently who was born premature. So obviously some health issues there, and he made an announcement the other day that the baby is progressing well and is fighting. His words are fighting and healthy. So that's good news to hear that that's it's never something you want to hear someone's personal life is in a bad place, but it seems like that David Silva's personal life had a little bit of a bump there, but it seems like everything's going well. So our best thoughts and wishes go to Mr. and Mrs. Silva and their baby, as well as Lionel Messi and his wife and family as they welcome the new addition. And that's really all I have to share. I hope that puts a smile on everybody's face for a little while anyway.
And that's all I have this week as well. So I'd like to thank you guys for tuning into this episode. I'd like to thank Ian for doing this podcast with me. Like to
It's
thank
always fun.
Macrophonic MC. He's a good friend of ours. It does our intro outro music. There will be a link to that in the description. There was also a link to our social media pages. Check those out. We post some news that that we plan on talking more extensively about in the upcoming episode on like our Facebook page and stuff like that, or any news on how videos are going, just to keep you guys updated. There will be links to all three of those in the description as well. We still have a t-shirt shop. I'll link that in the description. And lastly, if you guys could help us out just a little bit, hit that red subscribe button, and hit the bell so that you can stay updated on when we do post. We do post weekly on Thursdays. Sometimes it's a little later depending on how our lives are going. We do get a little bit of a hectic week, and it might be a little later, but we try not to. And with that, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next week.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Still holding on to Wi-Fi like Obama to a white guy. Temper in the center up when they're filled with some white lies. But that's politics, gets colder than the walrus stick. There's so many multitasking, they multi-taxing in spite of me. But am I convict, fighting it, standing aside and timing it. Go ahead and peak my temper, I'll meditate and then write it. Tiny fit my mode.